Good afternoon. Welcome to the 1911. Today I'm joined by Ewan and Chris, and we've got a special guest with us, Will.
Hi, guys.
Welcome in. How are we?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. Not so good after yesterday, but nice to be on. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. So, before we get into yesterday and all the shenanigans that happened, I just want us to touch on January transfer business. We had a fair few outgoings, fair few incomings. Big shake up at team. We lost a lot of characters. Just to quickly run through it, we've let go Patterson, Cook, Halliday, Richards, Neil Byrne, Kavanagh, and Tommy Lee. We've brought in and replaced them with Sibley, Joe White, Harrison Ashby, Mullin, Jackson, Wheatley, and Evans. Is it good business?
Yeah, I think it is. A lot of those players you've just mentioned, I know there's a lot of sentimental value around that, and they were part of the reason why we went up from League Two. But have we replaced them with quality? I think so. A lot of those players that we've brought in fact, majority of those players that we've brought in have got that quality or have had that quality, have played in the Championship, played in League One. I feel for me that, I think David Sharp said it as well, that he feels that we've come in stronger. I do. I was worried towards certainly the last week whether we were going to replace those players. But I think also those players were probably ready to move on and find a club that suited them. And I think that for me, I think it's a decent window.
Yeah, I would say, I think there's a few different prongs on this question. If you look at where we are now compared to where we were on 31st of December, I think the squad is objectively stronger. I think you look at the players who've left, and they've, I think, if not all, but primarily gone to League Two teams. And I think that's telling. The people we've let go, it's not like they're climbing the EFL. They've sort of dropped down to get to decent clubs, but like League Two clubs, like a rung below where we are. And yeah, I think there's sort of the sentimental part of things with Cook and Patterson, players like that who are sort of heroes with us. But yeah, I mean they're taking a step down to get games, right? So we've progressed almost. It sounds quite crude and a bit harsh to say, but it's almost like we've progressed beyond them. Because we've sort of progressed so quickly over the last sort of 18 months, right?
Yeah, so I'll ask you, Will, right? Because we've all discussed this many a times. Is, from your point of view, have we lost it? Right, forget about the quality of player and the fact that they've dropped down or whatever to get game time. Is there a bigger aspect here of the character of the dressing room? Have we got rid of too much character, in your opinion, than we've brought in?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a difficult question to answer that without being inside the dressing room, isn't it? But you can't. I mean, I don't think you can argue the fact that sort of it did seem like last season the nucleus of the dressing room was sort of around that leadership group of including some players we've let go. You do hear a lot. I think when you talk about, things like this, it often reminds me of going back a bit, showing my age, but our second season in the Premier League, the sort of nucleus of that squad that kept us up when we beat Liverpool on the last day. You often hear people like Jamie Lawrence or maybe Peter Beagrie or people like that talk about the fact that we went out and spent millions of pounds and brought in these players that just didn't quite fit, and it sort of upset the harmony of the dressing room a little bit. I wouldn't say the players are playing like a team with upset harmony. In fairness, what I would say is I back Graham Alexander's man management skills to sort of negate that, and I would have hoped as well that they wouldn't have made any decisions they wouldn't have gone on to make those kind of decisions that they'd have foreseen things like this coming. So I think, in a roundabout way, I think it's a bit of a non-point, really. I think teams progress, new players come in, while the players that have left will have clearly had a lot of fans. The players we brought in are objectively better. So yeah, I think That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and it's not as if like we've been booting people out the door. You know, these are players who have vocally come out to the manager and said, "Look, I'm not getting game time. I do want to play my football elsewhere." So they've been moved on. I mean, he's not going to make them stay, but he also can't. You know, he hasn't booted them either. So it's neither here nor there. I don't think, especially with Halliday. You know, just because the fans want him to stay and fight for his place, doesn't mean that he wants to. You know, you got to look at it from the player point of view as well, I suppose.
I think as well, that's a good point, and I think like you've got to consider these players have come to Graham Alexander and they're not playing as many games as they want. You're probably going to be doing more harm to the dressing room by keeping people around who don't want to be there, aren't you?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah, and it sounded like with Halliday as well, with what GA said, was that he'd actually come out to him, I think it was before Christmas, and said, I think it's my time to move on. So when you've got those kind of players who are saying, right, I think it's time for me to move on, then you know that whole sentiment thing again kind of goes out the window completely. Yeah, we want to keep hold of them, and I think that a lot of that is to do with the fact that we got promoted with them, and it's time to move on. If we want to be an established League One team or higher, then we need to make these decisions. Football is ruthless, and you can't have sentimental value to footballers. You've got to look out for the players that are going to bring in or who are going to make this team better. And personally, I think it's fine. I don't have any problems with it whatsoever.
Fair enough. So all right, we've got rid of a fair few stalwarts, so to speak. Then, who's your standout? Who stands out of the lads that we've brought in as these could be the difference maker?
I'm going to stick my head out and say I think Lee Evans. Which is a bizarre thing to say when you look at, obviously, the focus of what we've brought in is forward players. Players who are going to try to put the ball in the back of the net. But I think for a long time, we haven't really had adequate cover for our holding midfielder when we play that pivot for a long time. Probably going as far back as when Kevin McDonald was at the club. We need that extra player in that role who can play Power's position, because otherwise he becomes untouchable. And that's one of the sentiments we saw a little bit after Luton, is that we talked about it in our little group chat as well, saying that if that midfield is so untouchable, it sometimes does become an issue because you can't change it in any way. You know, you have to go into the game knowing that, well, this is what we've got to deal with, and we don't really have anything on the bench. I think it's a really good signing, even if, he plays like 6 games. And he only ever comes off the bench. It's still competition. It's still someone breathing over Power's shoulder, and it stops him being slightly untouchable.
Yeah, if we can get anything like the Lee Evans we had about 10 years ago.
He's a phenomenal player, yeah.
Yeah, I actually think I agree with you, Ewan. I think for me, it's probably that one, because we do need that pressure on the centre midfield. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later on, the Luton game, but we need that pressure. We need that. We need extra players in there that if Max isn't playing to as well as he should be, then there is that competition there where he isn't that untouchable player, which I think, to be fair, he probably has had that tag on him this season. I think it's almost like he's, that we don't, he's undroppable, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So we do need that pressure, and it's certainly a position that we all have mentioned, as you said, that we do need more strength in. So yeah, I would say Lee Evans for me as well.
I'd say that to that point, it's almost like they've kind of done that through the entire squad, right? From the start of the season, we've had quite a few really important players who have their form over the last couple of months has sort of dipped a little bit. Like Josh Nurfield's another one. We brought in Harrison Ashby to sort of push him, and obviously, I mean, the headline grabbers in over January with the forward players. But I think, just to pick a different one, I'd probably say if we can get him playing to our strengths and his strengths, and if he can hit the ground running, so to speak, then Paul Mullin. I think we don't have another player like him. I think, and regardless of what anyone thought of the signing or how he did at Wigan or how he did last season, you can't argue the fact that in bringing him in, he automatically becomes our best striker. And for a team that is struggling to score goals regularly and a team that's form has dipped, I think he's got to be one of the most important signings.
I'd agree with that on Mullin, because forgive my French, but we're missing that housery sort of player that we need, and Mullin, he brings that. He can get under the skin of anyone, whether it be a fan, a defender, referee, anyone. So I think that's something that we were kind of missing with that sort of like that really aggressive sort of approach that I think at times we're too much of a nice team. And I think Mullin's going to bring that in spades.
Yeah, we need someone with that bulldog mentality, because it doesn't matter if Humphreys has shaved all his hair off. He's still not mentally that player that Mullin is. He's not going to want to get in defenders' heads and run about. So fair work to the club for bringing him in. I totally agree that with the people that have been saying he's not a League One quality player, probably because he has struggled at this level quite recently and throughout his entire career, really. He only ever had that massive spell in League Two with Wrexham. And like I say, he didn't exactly do very well at Wigan. But again, that might be down to Wigan and Ryan Lowe and the quality of the players there as well.
I think it's really important to say that I was listening to Mullin, his interview before, like when he'd signed, and he talked about the Wigan, and he said that it wasn't what he'd been sold. It didn't sound like he was particularly happy there. His goal ratio, though, was something like, I think it was like 5 goals in 19 appearances, and he was coming on for maybe 20 minutes a game. So on that aspect, I think you've got to look at, obviously, it just did not work at Wigan, but automatically people say, because he went back, it was a failure. But it sounds to me like from what he was saying was that he wanted to come back. He obviously thought that he could have another opportunity, and then obviously as well, you see where Wigan are currently, just obviously sacked Lowe as well yesterday. So sometimes it's just not the right fit, is it? I mean, it happens with any player in any clubs, really.
100%. And I think as well with Wigan, people use that sort of he only scored 5 goals and thing. And like you say, scoring 5 goals in a team that are rubbish isn't bad. And I think as well, like looking at what, like, I'm trying to think what success would look like for him with us between now and the end of the season. And if he offers something different to what we've already got, which he definitely does, because like we're saying, he's the kind of person who's going to chase down blind alleys. He's going to rustle people. He's going to get under people's skin, and he's just he offers something a bit different to Stephen Humphreys. But like, if he cause a bit of chaos, score 5 or 6 goals, and that's probably that's not bad. I think that would constitute a successful loan spell.
I think that's all you want. I think the only thing that's going to be frustrating about Mullin is referees really don't like giving him anything. It's going to be another Andy Cook sort of exercise where he's going to be getting fouled every week, and everyone else is going to see it, barring a referee, and I think that's going to frustrate a lot of people. But no, I think you're quite right, Will. I think success for Mullin to me looks like making an absolute mess in the box, absolute chaos, and grabbing 5 or 6 goals. And I think that would be success of a signing for us there.
Yeah, I think he'll pick up quite a few bookings on the way as well, to be fair.
Yes, absolutely.
I did want to mention Caden Jackson as well, a local lad. He's come back to club. I'm impressed. He were a bit quiet yesterday, and we'll go into yesterday, we know, but his first game for us against Donny, it was just, it's a level above, isn't it? How we've attracted a player of that quality to come down to our level, basically, is beyond me, because to me, he looks leagues above.
I mean, he didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he scored at Derby whilst he was there.
No, I did.
So I'm not. I will be the first to say he probably is very good for this league, but calling him championship quality might be slightly a stretch. But that being said, he did look fantastic against Donny. He's the perfect fit for that wide striker role to play, left or right of a central striker, because he's got the pace to get him in behind, and he's got that bit of trickery in his locker as well. And those are the players in that formation that need to chase those long balls down the line. You want your Mullins and your Humphreys to be as static as possible in the centre in order to be poachers and to finish off those crosses, but you need your wide strikers to then run down the line. He's got the pace for it. He's got the trickery. And like I say, he looked really good against Doncaster. He did have a poor game against Luton, but these players aren't going to hit the ground running immediately coming into a club that is on the slide at the moment.
I think as well with Jackson, regardless of what you think of him as a player, and again, this is like nothing more than hearsay, but like if rumours are to be believed, like he picked us over Huddersfield, and I think if like you can judge players within the league based on the other teams that are going after them, right? So like if Huddersfield are going after him with their riches, and like we're also like our ambitions are basically the same thing, then that probably says something about him as well, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't think he's moved. Well, he's not moved for money. Let's be honest.
No one comes to City for money.
I don't think he's moved for money. No, I think he has. If there was interest from Huddersfield, he's moved for the right reasons to come to us, and that only bodes well, in my opinion. You haven't got a mercenary there, and I think that's a massive thing, and it kind of that sits in keeping with the sort of player Bradford City fans want, that mentality of work hard. You want to be there and all that good stuff. Before we move on, I did want to give a shout out to the City admin for the way they announced weekly. I think that was a phenomenal bit of social media work. So a bit of a well played City there for that, because it is incredible, and that level of banter, like, it's just on point, wasn't it?
Would have been a missed opportunity if they hadn't done anything.
Yeah,
so yeah,
exactly,
fair play.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had to call them out. Like, it was just incredible. But we digress. Let's move on. So since our last episode, we've played 2. We had Donny and we won 1-0. And then yesterday, let's start off with iPad Gate and Donny.
Do we actually believe that is? I think I'm not too entirely sure that is true. However, I do. I mean, being at the game, I'm pretty sure that I saw the referee point to the centre spot 3 times before he decided to disallow it and obviously go to the 4th official. I mean, it could have ended up being, if we'd have lost that game, do you imagine the kind of meltdown from that one? Luckily, we managed to win that from an absolute beaut from Tyreek. But yeah, I'm not sure. I referee had much of a Scooby, to be honest with you. And obviously needed to find someone who was miles away from the goal to tell him that it was handball, which, I mean, let's face it, chaps, it probably was handball.
Oh, it definitely was, absolutely. It's worth pointing out, though, that the 4th official would have had a better view than the referee, probably, with the way the ball comes across. It hits his right arm on the side of the 4th official, so he would have had possibly a better view.
But the line
exactly. It's I think even if you disregard any of the iPad nonsense that other brands are available, by the way, we should point out other brands of tablet you can use. We're not sponsored by Apple. If the referee hasn't had a clue, the linesman hasn't had a clue, and they've had to go to the 4th official as well, who might not have even had a clue either. It's just a bit worrying, isn't it, that all those like rungs have possibly all got it wrong, or all disagreed, or all not had enough nous about them to get the decision right in the first place.
It is absolutely wild that like the way they came to that decision. Like, I mean, like we said, yeah, it was the right decision, but the way they came to it is just it's baffling, isn't it? I think like as well with referees, like we can sit and talk about weird refereeing decisions in League One till the cows come home, can't we? It's like, I feel like I actually think our fan base is quite good at not doing that. Controversially, maybe, but but this, yeah, it would like if it had actually changed the course of the game, it would have been a bit as it is now. We got a bit of good social media content out of it, but I can't get my head around from the goal going in to what, like a minute or so after, like the chain of events that happened. Like what's going on? Like, what are we doing, lads? You know what I mean? Like,
it's a joke, innit? I think the officiating in general in in the EFL at the moment, and Premier League, it's just a joke, and I'm not sure what the FA are teaching these refs. To be fair, some of the decisions are baffling, and that's being kind. Let's be honest. You see it every week, and it does have implications. These decisions. I know we say we can't blame refs, this, that, and the other, but a ref makes a decision and it goes in the wrong way, and it sends a team down. You know, it could have massive financial implications. We're talking about people's livelihoods as well. I think a lot more needs to be brought to the forefront a bit more. The standard of officiating in general.
Yeah, it's that key word, isn't it? Accountability. And that's the big thing for refs at the moment. I don't think there's enough accountability in the EFL. I know, obviously, people tend to be obsessed with these promotions, that refs tend to rise the ranks quite quickly, even after poor games and bad reviews. But those sort of things are decided well in advance. But it's still disappointing to see that there isn't enough relegation and probably promotion for good and bad refs, because there is no accountability. Probably because there is such a shortage. You know, there's such a lack of referees in the country that they do have to be pushed to the top level quicker, because they've got to get them on the rise, because that's where they're needed.
I was going to say, yeah, I think that is because nobody wants to be a referee, and you can't really blame them, can you? And I think as well, like, I wouldn't necessarily agree with you on accountability, just because you're putting people in a position where you make a mistake and I think essentially what we need to do is we need to make refereeing a more attractive job, a more attractive proposition. I think Graham Alexander put it well in a post-match interview a few weeks ago. It's rather than accountability or like the way, like making mistakes or things like that, it's more just like consistency. If a referee is going to referee a game consistently for the entire game, fine. Like, we can get on board with, like, okay, this is a referee that's going to give silly fouls, cheap fouls. He's gonna book you. He's going to give fouls for it's like a defender falls on the floor kind of thing. But if you're going to do that for half the game and then completely change the way you referee it for the other half of the game, no one knows where they stand. No one can understand the decisions he's making, let alone players, managers. It's almost just like sometimes it's just a random decision generator kind of thing. Let's have some consistency. That's basically all I'm asking for.
I could not agree more with you, and I think that is one thing that I always say, is that we need that consistent. If you're going to be consistently giving free kicks for a specific thing, maybe slight pull or whatever, then I feel that also the managers need to kind of understand that is the way that the referee expects the game to be played. My problem, and as you said as well about consistency, the problem is sometimes is when the referee then changes the way of the way that they're reffing the game. That's where it becomes really difficult. But you'll know sometimes within a referee within the first, I'd say 10 minutes, what kind of referee he is and how he's going to play. Is he going to be stop-start? Do the players need to learn how to manage that with the referee? But it's also one of those age-old conversations that we're always going to have. We'll be hearing, well, I won't be here in 50 years, but in 50 years' time, we'll still be having that same conversation. But yeah, consistency is the key for referees. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, I think respect is a big word as well, because I don't think there are any refs anymore that are respected, probably. And it's a problem with the players as well, how, it's a modern thing that they all crowd him, and it's an issue with the game at the moment. There is no respect for referees, that they don't get that personal space, but they also don't get the ability, also on the other side of accountability, to hold the hand up and say, well, I got that wrong, but I'm a referee. And people, I think, forget that sometimes, that refs will get things wrong because they're human. This isn't a sport like, tennis, that can be easily defined by in or out. It's such a complex game, football. Refs are always going to get impartial decisions wrong, or they're going to get decisions that go against you or go for you. It's not as easy to say yes or no.
No, I'd agree. But we're focusing a lot on the ref from Donny game there.
Yeah, should we talk
But-
about the Luton ref then?
Well, I don't want to move off Donny until we discuss Tyreek's strike. It were wow. What a thunderbolt. I didn't know the boy had it in his locker.
Yeah, no excuses now. Now I've seen he can do that. Absolutely no. I want him shooting from halfway every game. No, it was a brilliant strike.
He looks going into a bit of the Luton game. He looked since he scored that. Then he looked like his confidence is there, and he was looking to take on his value. He looked so bright against Luton. He was probably one of our brightest players, in my opinion.
I'd definitely say so.
And all from that one strike.
He had that moment, didn't he, in the first half against Luton when he took on about 3 players, got around them all, and then scuffed the shot. But I mean, yeah, like he did the first bit really well. But yeah, I think it's been a long time coming for him, hasn't it? That goal. I think you'd be hard pushed to find a City fan who wasn't really pleased for him, because he's really struggled with his confidence, hasn't he? It's like it's at times it's been quite hard to watch, because like we all know like there's a player in there and we all know what he's capable of, and just seeing him like see his confidence get knocked time and time again. It helped that it was a late winner as well. But yeah, he took the net off basically, didn't he?
Yeah, it was really good to see for Tyreek, and you're right, he's one of these players that I think confidence is such a big part of his game. And I'll also say as well, and I'm not sure what you guys will think to this, but I'm intrigued to know what your thoughts are. I personally believe Tyreek is the best crosser of the ball at this football club.
Yeah,
I mean, Nerfil put it on a plate for him for his goal, and I think Nerfil's another player who's had his confidence rocked over the last few months. But I think between him and Ibby, I think that's your competition.
I think Jensen Metcalf's got a decent delivery on him. I'm just thinking back to the assist he got against Blackburn, and I can't get out of my head all the crosses that end up in the stand from right. As much as I'm
I mean, and not to mention as well that it's when Tyreek puts the ball in, because the amount of times, like you say, with the confidence that we just want him to take on his man, because we know he's got the pace, he's got the ability, but he checks back too many times and he doesn't swing it in as quickly as he should. So
he is the ultimate definition of a confidence player, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like there's no ifs, buts, or maybes about it. If he's feeling confident, you're going to get the best out of him. And when it's not going so well for him, he retreats into a shell, and that's when we all get frustrated and say he shouldn't be anywhere near team, and it doesn't do his confidence any good. But can he be? Can we allow him to be that way though, as a confidence player? Does he need to find a way to sort of like overcome that sort of aspect of his game to become more consistent? Because you're not going to have confidence every game, are you? You're going to feel a bit iffy at times, and is that a luxury we can afford?
I'd say that's one for Graham Alexander. That's man management, isn't it? You've got to make your players feel sort of 10 foot tall, regardless of what's going on. And I think, in fairness to him, he's done well to get, like, while it's not been a consistent level of performance, he's done well to get like a decent level of performance out of him for quite a while now. He's like, and I don't know about how anyone else thinks, but I always sort of think of him as a player that's like, he's not a fringe player, but he's not a guaranteed starter. He's sort of like in between the two.
Yeah.
But then you look at him, you look at his stats for the season, and he's played like nearly 75 to 80% of matches. He's basically been one of the most consistent selections this season. So yeah, in a roundabout way, basically, yeah. I mean, it's up to Graham Alexander, that, isn't it, or managers to get in his head, basically.
Yeah. That's fair. Well, so we beat Donny, and we needed that massively. I think with the way our form's been, and just to get one over on Billy Sharp and co, to be honest, and whatnot. So we move on to Luton now. Chris and Will, you were there.
Yep.
Take us through what you saw.
I think it was really disappointing. I think we just looked really passive. I thought there was no point in the game, in the first half especially, where for me anyway, it really looked like we were gonna I thought we were gonna score. While we had a fair bit of the ball, we had a lot of possession, and we sort of limited them up until the opening goal. We limited them to sort of set pieces and things like that. It just felt like a bit of a sort of this feels a bit strong to say, but like almost like a bit of a nothing performance, because the only times we really got in behind them, we sort of just squandered the chance. For example, like Wright's effort when he beat 3 players and then just scuffed it into someone's legs. We never really took control of it when I think it was there for us to take control. We improved in the second half, but we missed so many chances and there was so little composure. And by the time we really by the time we did anything and got a goal, it was way too late. But even then, we had the chance right at the end, and we could have snatched an equaliser. I was saying this after the game, we wouldn't have had to play that much better to win that game, I don't think. Yeah. Which is why it's really frustrating that we lost, really.
Yeah, I completely agree with that again. I felt that we lost the midfield battle quite a lot. I think that it did change when we went 3 in the middle. I think that was when obviously we scored the goal too late, far too late. There was a lot of average performances yesterday. And I didn't think they were that great, if I'm honest, Will, yesterday. I don't think that they were certainly world beaters. I mean, you look at kind of the amount of money that they've spent on that team as well. And then that's something else that we have to remember about that team. But I just found it... I think the writing was on the wall. I think their first goal was kind of coming. I think you could see that. I think when we came out in the second half, though, for the first 2 or 3 minutes, maybe a little bit longer than that, I thought we really, really went at them. And I think I was starting to feel that the game was starting to change. Then they scored a second. Yeah, a frustrating performance, but I think one that probably could have been a bit of a reality check for City, really.
See, I'm not too sad. I'm not too sad with how we played yesterday. I don't think it was that bad of a performance. I think we lacked a clinical edge. That's for everyone to see. That's fair enough. But I think if we get a goal back or even get the first goal, that game's a totally different game.
Yeah,
massively. Because when we got in the face of Luton, they were scared. They were scared, and they started making errors left, right, and centre. I do think we lost the midfield battle quite a lot in the centre, but I think a big issue, and I mentioned it yesterday in our group chat. Max Power is playing with that yellow card over his head and that ban. He needs to get that yellow card done and dusted, get the ban out of the way so he can reset and get back to the max power we know. Because I don't think that he was as intense as what we've come to expect. He's a bit more passive because he knows it's coming and he don't want to be out or whatever. So I don't think that helped. But yeah, I think Toure as well, he's been struggling for the last couple of weeks for me. He's not been at his best until he needs to stop dragging back and trying to pass the ball. Just do tilt things. Don't try and overcook it, because I think he's had a couple poorer games recently, where he's dwelled on the ball a bit, and that's causing us problems. That's causing the breaks. But on the whole, I'm not overly sad with how we played. I think we did all right. I think we did enough to get at least a point out of the game.
No, I think the key word in all of that is composure. You know, it's been mentioned already. You know, the first goal comes about because it was quite a frantic game. I like to point out as well. Like, it was a lot of end-to-end stuff. Both teams trying to hit each other really on the counter. And the first one comes because there's a gigantic gap between the defence and midfield that isn't closed fast enough, or was open to begin with. Like you say, we'll come on to the midfield to dissect it a little bit later. But It's just that lack of composure to slow the game down as well, to think, well, hang on, we're hanging on a bit here, so let's try slow the pace down. Let's try get our foot on the ball. Let's try, eke a performance and a result out of this game. And the second goal is so frustrating because, like you say, for the first 10 minutes we were easily the better side, and had we scored then, we would have, I think, gone on to comfortably win because they were really up against it. And we just opened ourselves up to that sucker punch. Metcalf loses the ball in midfield, no composure there, and then it's just simple passes right the way through. I think Tilt doesn't get close enough to the goal scorer, and then it's not a great shot either into the back of the net. It's just frustrating to see that it was that easy to just open us up, and every team we've played recently, I think, has cut through us like that at some point in the game, and it's worrying to see because I think Alexander does need to swallow his pride a bit here and say, look, we are really having issues in the middle of the park at the moment. So either we drop another player in there, we go 3 in the middle, and we play 2 up front like we did against Huddersfield and like we did later on against Luton, or we have a rejig of the team, or we just rethink how we're going to stop this from happening. Because, like I say, I really, really like Metcalf, but he had a poor game yesterday. And if you don't have composure in these big games against teams who do have this championship quality and have spent that money, then you're going to lose.
Yeah, I think that lack of composure was like exemplified. No better example of it was when it was Ethan Wheatley's one-on-one, where he could have done anything. I mean, fair play for getting in the position, fair play for for taking the ball, and fair play for sort of creating the chance. I mean, it was also Sarcevic's through ball that made it as well, but he just picked the wrong option. And like so many times during that game, but not even just that game, but in this sort of like slump that we've had recently, just players are just picking the wrong option, or the decision making's not been on point. Or going back to your point about defending as well, it feels like from the first goal, especially yesterday, we've defended quite naively for quite a while in certain games, and we've conceded not that exact goal. We've conceded similar goals to that a few times now over the last few weeks. I mean, the Huddersfield goal, everyone just switched off. Cardiff's first goal against us as well. It's like, and I think yesterday was another example. It feels like certain people are switching off at the wrong times, and like regardless of people's ability, regardless of how well you train, that's sort of unforgivable if you're a defender and switching off at a moment like that. Like that needs to be addressed.
It's basics, isn't it? It is basics, and I don't know about whether you all agree, but it's been an issue all season as well. We never seem to make the seconds. We never seem to pick up second balls. There's always a massive gap, and it always ends up being to an opposition team.
Yeah. It's not just that as well. I think what's really important is it's taking us we're too slow for so for instance, like you mentioned about the Cardiff game, they were absolutely destroying us with the quick throw-ins because we just weren't set in time. And I saw it a couple of times yesterday where we're not set, the defense isn't set, midfield isn't set. It's almost like they're expecting another 5 or 6 seconds before either a free kick's taken or a throw-in, and we're too slow. And that's something that we didn't have, I would say, at the beginning of the season, because we literally went for every single ball and we put a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy into there. But at times we are so incredibly slow, and it's really frustrating. And that is part of the reason why we are being caught out. You mentioned as well about simple balls that are getting put through, and they are simple balls, and we that is where we're conceding. It's not a moment of magic from an opposition team. It just feels like sometimes it's really basic football, and we're not set properly, or we're too slow.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wouldn't say it's been something that's happened all season. I'd definitely say it's a problem that's recently come up in probably over the Christmas period into now. Because otherwise, I think we've been really, really solid defensively, with that mental mindset of, well, if we can't win, we're certainly not going to lose. And we've eked out a lot of really good draws or clean sheets where we've needed to in tough games. Think about going to Bolton in October, was it, or September, when we were on a real slump, and we thought, well, we're going to struggle to get something here, and we went in defensively solid, and we got a 0-0 draw. But that hasn't been the case recently. Huddersfield was the big one for me. Just every throw-in they took, we were just not ready for at all. And you could see, if we can see it from the stands, I just wonder why they can't see it in the dugout or on the pitch.
Yeah, and I think that is a good point as well. And like, I think it bears. Like, obviously, yesterday result was 2-1. We've not, like, we didn't get absolutely battered, but I think that defense point is really crucial because while we had a few chances in the second half, so did they. They could have easily scored 3 or 4 had it not been for either lack of composure on their side or a couple of decent saves from Sam Walker. Like, it could have been worse, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, Sam Walker making saves. Chris, are you all right with that?
Here we go. So I was what he's alluding to is talking about Sam Walker's distribution, which there was a couple of times yesterday actually his distribution, right? But that's the one thing that frustrates me with Sam a lot is his distribution. The Doncaster game, I think it was a Doncaster game. Certainly the Huddersfield game was absolutely terrible. Yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Where do you stand on the Will? Where do you stand with Sam Walker? Because to be fair, it's actually a decent talking point because there's a lot of toing and froing going around on all the social media platforms about is Sam Walker the guy between the sticks for us right now?
I think I've flip flopped on this quite a bit, and I saw there's a stat that I saw, and I'm going to butcher it, but he's quite high up in the save percentage stats.
Second in league.
Yeah. So the question I asked myself is, has he cost us any points this season? Like, is he been directly at fault for us dropping any points this season over other players that are in the team? And I'm not sure. I mean, off the top of my head, I'm not sure I can necessarily think of anything, but I also think he's quite a big guy, right? And I think the pace at which, when he concedes, the pace at which sometimes the ball goes into the back of the net, I sometimes think that like when he gets down, because he's really big, and it's almost like watching a statue fall over because he's really tall, and I think that doesn't look great. Like when a ball's like fired past him because he's got a big frame. I think it can often like just to watch him can look like, he should have got down quicker to that. But when push comes to shove, I'm in the Walker in camp at the moment. Just because look at the amount of like save percentage. I think he comes for crosses and he deals with crosses very well. And I also think if we are saying like if people are complaining about maybe the leadership group being sort of taken apart in January, he's a key player in that. Like I think he's a popular player in the dressing room as well. So Walker in for me for now.
Chris, on your bike, son.
Hold on. Hold on. When I said Walker out, what I've done is
You said Walker out in the summer.
No.
That's as far as you've gone.
Mate, you've criticised him for the last 6 weeks every week without fail.
Allowed to criticise a football player? Am I expected to just go, oh, great? I have criticised him and I've given the reasons why I've criticised him. And I think all of that is very fair. Have I said that I am Walker out? No. Do I think that we potentially might need for this league or above a different goalkeeper going forward? Possibly, yes. That doesn't make me Walker out.
I tend to agree with that as well, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm in that camp as well, yeah.
Like for now, for where we are at the moment, I think it's all right. And like I've definitely I think a lot of criticism of him has been justified as well. Like I think both things can be true. Like so, yeah.
I think at this level you're not going to have the most consistent players. It's League One. If there were consistent footballers, they'd be in the Prem. Because on a good day, any of these players can play at a higher level. But because they're not consistent enough, that's why they're in League One. But we
Lewis, hang on. Lewis Richards is consistently injured. Why isn't he in the Premier League? Is it round up time after that?
I think it's got to be. It's got to be.
Right.
Go on, Ewan.
Right. Well, there was only one other early kickoff yesterday, and it was Port Vale 2, Burton Albion 2. Beasley with another brace for Burton. He looks like he's going to keep them in this league for the time being. Wimbledon 3, Reading 2. Their season looks to be over, Reading. I don't think they're going to make playoffs now. Bolton 3, Barnsley 2. Barnsley continue to struggle to pick up points. Huddersfield needing a late equaliser to draw with Blackpool, though it does see them go level on points with City and above them for the first time this season. Mansfield 0, Exeter 0. Clean sheet for Harry Lewis on his first start for Mansfield. Northampton 3, Stevenage 1. Their slide continues. Peterborough 6, Wigan 1, which is very concerning for us coming into that fixture soon. Lincoln beating Plymouth 4-1. Cardiff, 10-man Cardiff beating Rotherham 3-0. Stockport 0, Leyton Orient 0. Obviously, they come to City on Tuesday night. And Wickham 4, Doncaster 0, who look like they are all but relegated now.
Yeah.
It's different. It's shaping up in there. This league's shaping up to. I think we're all in danger of overreacting, and we have a couple of losses and we start moving down. But look at how tight it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out that we do.
Go back up.
Yeah, I mean, we do slip to 6th into the last playoff spot, but we do have 2 games in hand. We're still level on points with Huddersfield, and the teams above us now are these teams who have spent big. So I think we do need to kind of take a bit of a step backwards, look at reality and say, well, look, we have never had the funds as a club to compete with anything that Cardiff, Bolton, Stockport, Huddersfield have been thrown at this. Lincoln obviously is a bit more of a long-term project, but that's what we need to be looking at, a long-term project, not, spending, $1 million on Ballymumba in January to try and get ourselves promoted. We're not that kind of club, and we may never be that kind of club who goes out and spends that big money. So we've got to look at a long-term project and say, well, look, regardless of what we've done in the second half of the season, whether we've had a slide or not, we're still going to finish probably above 10th. Like, we're going to be easily in the top half, probably just outside the playoffs, I'd say. And that's a great season. That's a brilliant season.
You think we're dropping out of playoffs?
Yeah, I think we're dropping out of the playoffs. I think looking at the teams around us who are starting to pick up momentum, and I can easily see that top 5 starting to create a real gap in terms of that is where the money and the quality is in this league. But that being said, we do have some big teams to play at home still. So if you look at the top 6 at the moment, of those, we've beaten them once and lost once, apart from Lincoln, who we drew against, obviously, and then the 2 teams we yet to play, Bolton and Stockport. Bolton and Stockport at home, we tend to be quite good at home. I'd back us to probably get a draw against Stockport, who aren't that consistent. Bolton, it's late on in the season; they may be scrapping for that last automatic spot, so we'll have to see what happens in late April. But we're better at home than we are away. We know that, so I don't have a problem with us picking up points at home. It's just away that we'll have those issues. And luckily, we've got a lot of big away games out of the way already.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your sentiment about having a bit of perspective, and I agree with it. Like, let's not all like lose our heads. And I appreciate as well, like you said, Andy, like it's the league's tight. I think there's 2 things to that. I think number one, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, it actually wasn't that tight where we were. Like we had like a 7-8 point gap to like maybe 5th place, and that's sort of been eroded over like a month and a half of like dreadful results. So I think, like, while you're right and while still in a good position, I think it's understandable that like people would be concerned. And I also appreciate, like you said, we're battling with teams with like resources that outweigh ours vastly, and we're not that club, and probably might never be that kind of club. But I also think on the same thing, like we've been doing it in the entire season, and we are fighting them, and we are competing, and like just because we've had a few poor results, it's not like we've still got an opportunity here. Let's not just turn around and say like, oh well, they've got 10 times our budget, so fair play kind of thing. Like I can understand the frustration, and I can understand the sort of criticism that comes in because like it does. If this sort of form were to continue over the next sort of 6 weeks, it's like we've let an opportunity slip through our fingers, and given that we have our resources are like vastly inferior to basically anyone else who's fighting for promotion, we don't know when we're going to get another opportunity like this again. So yeah, I think perspective is key, but I also think let's not take it too far and have an inferiority complex when we're sort of like looking at who we're fighting against.
Feel like it's there are some people are a total doom and gloom at the moment, and I do feel that I absolutely agree with what you're saying. With the fact is, there is still a lot to play for this season. It is certainly no disservice to get beat 2-1 by Luton, who have, again, we've talked about the money side of things, and a lot of the clubs have got a lot more money than us. I think we were treated to an amazing 2025. I think it probably has been the best year we've had in a long, long, long time. But I think we also need to have a bit of a reality check as well. And we do need to realise that we are going to struggle at certain times this season. I guess we already knew that was going to happen. Have we been found out in a few games? I think potentially. Is the team getting a bit tired? Possibly as well. But I just think that, again, it's that reality check that we need to realise that, you mentioned about Huddersfield spending £1 million on a defender. We can't spend anywhere near that kind of money, not unless we get a takeover or whatnot. But I think it's about understanding our limits.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Is it a limit? Does Rupp have the pockets deep enough to push us over a line?
To be in the same model as Bolton, Huddersfield, Stockport, Cardiff, no. Absolutely not. And that's realistic. We don't have that kind of money that those clubs have. He'd have to pump in a hell of a lot of money to make us anywhere near that.
I think in him saying, like, we can ask the question and we can wonder about that, but like he says that he does, and like you've got to take him at that word, because if he doesn't, that's like politically an absolute suicide to come out on local radio and tell fans that you've got enough money to take us up again. Like if you actually don't. And I think realistically as well, what we're looking at, we've got 19 games left, is it? No, 17 games left. We're on 49 points. We realistically probably need another 28 points in our last 17 games, and that's what, like 1.6 points a game, something like that. And having played the majority of the top teams twice already, there's definitely 28 points left in that slate. And like we're looking, and we've got 2 games in hand over like teams below us, and those 2 games in hand are against Port Vale, who are basically relegated already, and Rotherham, which is
a guaranteed loss then, yeah.
Yeah. And Rotherham, who look like they might be going the same way, just got beat 3-0 by 10 men. So if this was any other club, for example, if we were in Luton's position and they were above us, we think we've got no chance of catching them because we've got 2 games in hand, gap of 4 points. Like, things are in our favour. The only thing that isn't in our favour is we've just had a bit of a slump, and we need to get out of that, which is obviously, easier said than done. But like, like you said, Chris, I can understand people being miserable, and being a bit doom and gloom given what's happened over the sort of like the last 6 weeks. But it's still like we're still in there, and we're still like, look at how much it means to all the other teams when they beat us as well. Like celebrate like they won the World Cup. It's because we're considered among the better teams in the league.
And I think that is also a big change into why we are struggling a little bit as well. There is the respect that is given to Bradford City now, where we didn't have that. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, that teams are now kind of looking at us with a bit more respect, kind of putting respect on our name. And I think that does help. And, I think that is something that we're having to deal with. And I think that's another factor of maybe why we are having this slump at the moment. But I think it's really important. We're 6th in the table, but there's so many people at the moment that are really frustrated. But if you say, just calm down a little bit, relax. Then you get called a happy clapper, which I think is ridiculous. One of the chants, I'll mention this because I put it on my Twitter last night because I was fuming as walking back from the game, but sideways and backwards everywhere we go chant yesterday. I just thought, oh, come on, guys, we're 6th in the table. Let's get behind them. We don't need chants like that. And I don't regret what I put down on Twitter. And I've had a conversation with a few people about it, but I just think that we just need to have that reality check.
It's a lose-lose situation, isn't it? Because you can look at the fans and say, well, these are the players who got us to this position. So either you take a step back and go, well, actually, we've got Curtis Tilton defence, who's never been a League One quality player. He's played most of his career in League Two, and that you could say that for a lot of players in our squad, that they are maybe unproven at this level. But you could also look at it the other way and say, well, no, these players got us to this level, so why can't they continue it? It's worth pointing out as well that, again, not to bring it back to money again, but we're not going to rip up the entire structure of the club to try compete this season. And I think the management and the higher-ups, Sparks will be looking at this going, well, we never were in that race. He won't be thinking about, challenging for autos or promotion because he'll know it's out of the reach of the financial limitations of the club. And the opportunity was never there. And I think even if Rook was willing to throw millions at the club, which I don't think he is for the record, I don't think Sparks would allow it. I don't think not because he's a miserable bastard or something and he doesn't want to see us succeed, but I think above all else he's got the priority of running the club well for a profit in mind. He won't want to see the club going to the red.
I'm not so sure I agree with that, to be honest. I think while Ryan Sparks has his critics, and at times I've been one of them, I think there are some justified criticisms that you can lay at his door. If you're not going to be as ambitious as possible, especially when you've got an opportunity like this laid in your doorstep, then what's the point? Like, what is the point? Like, and he for whatever you think of him, he's not an idiot, and he's not. While he's unlikely to say, let's go and blow the family silver and bring in someone for, I don't know, Jake Beasley, for example, let's go spend £2 million on it. That's not going to happen. I also think if you're not going to think as a fan that the people running the club have the best intentions of it within the specific season, and at least have a little bit of ambition to want to keep make the most of the opportunity that's fallen at the doorstep, then I think we're sort of like getting into it. We're almost sort of bordering on conspiracy there.
Yeah, I'm not calling an idiot, and I'm actually you were mentioning that he wants to be ambitious. I think he is really ambitious, but I think he's so ambitious that he sees way beyond the petty goals of one season. I think that the management will have looked at the amount of money that the top six have spent, barring us, and gone, well, we can't compete, so what do we need to do? Well, we need to make sure we have a good season, because if we finish this season, we finish 7th, we just miss out on playoffs, or even we get into playoffs and we lose in the semi-final, or whatever happens, people players, coaches, whatever, will look at the club and say, wow, they've gone from, last auto spot in League Two to finishing just outside the playoff in the space of 12 months. That's really impressive. I want to be involved in that. And I think Sparks will always have that long-term goal in his head. He won't be thinking about short-term, because to him that's neither here nor there, I don't think. He wants the club to succeed. Of course he wants the club to win games, to sign good players, and to make the fans engaged and happy. But at the end of the day, I think he'll be looking at the bigger picture.
But if you're in a position where you're staring at a potential auto spot, playoff spot in the face, is that not a point, even from a financial aspect? You're thinking, let's gamble, let's go for it, because and put it all on the line this season. For me personally, when January started, we were second, third, teetering between the two. So autos is a genuine potential, and there's a risk and a gamble to take there where you could have thrown that extra mil or whatever it be, it's late, XYZ player to take that gamble where it's going to pay massive dividends next season if we go up. You look, we spoke about it on the last pod about the difference in TV money alone, let alone everything else. That for me, the risk would have outweighed the.
But I think the gap between what other clubs have been spending. I know this is an extreme example, but take Huddersfield, who really have spent a lot, more than anyone this season, and then take what we are able to throw at. That gap is huge, and it's too big, I think, to justify throwing a tenth of what Huddersfield has spent at a chance to get promoted, when it's actually better off saved for next season, when we could say, right, well, we're going to have a real go of it now.
Well, can you not argue, though, the fact that what we did at the first half of the season is an example of why, regardless of how big the gap in funding or budget is, that doesn't need to be the main driver in whether you think you should have a go or not, because like we've outplayed and done a lot better than clubs with like Luton. Like, they're still on parachute payments, and we're still 4 points above them. Like, what we produced in the first half of the season is surely the perfect example that budget isn't the be all and end all.
Exactly. So, why not save that money? I'm still with my point, I think. And as well, these are the players that got you to this position, so the club will show faith in them. And I think the reason why we're now struggling isn't because other clubs have raced away with money, although of course that is a factor. It's more an issue of what's gone on the field, where, like you say, clubs have started giving us that respect, which means that we can't sucker punch them as hard, and we have had a bit of a crisis, I think, in the squad as well. It's on the pitch. I think is obviously you get promoted on the pitch, not off it.
Yeah, I do think one thing from what you're saying, I do think it is important to say that I agree. Like, if we finished 8th this season, looking at it in isolation, that's a good season. That's a great season.
Right.
But I think if we finish 8th now, history will remember it as the team that bottled as a team that bottled a place in the top 6. Like, I
can't agree with that.
I'm not saying I agree with that.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not saying I agree with that, but history will remember. If we don't finish in the top 6, I think history will remember. Like, remember that season that we were shooing for the top 6 for the entire, first two-thirds, 3/4 of the season, and then just blew it.
Yeah, there'll always be that caveat, though, that, look at Bradford, they bottled the playoffs. Yeah, but everyone above them spent massive money that they just didn't have, No, I mean, our fans, I'm sometimes very, very harsh on them. We do have some deluded fans amongst us, Chris being one of them, of course. But surely the majority of the fan base aren't looking at us going, oh, we were realistically going to go out and sign Beasley for that amount of money. I don't think most of the fan base thinks that we have that kind of money to throw around. And I think when all the people who have been calling for Alexander's head said, oh, I don't mind if he goes to Blackburn, have calmed down from that, they'll look at this season and go, right, well, it looks like Port Vale are definitely going to get relegated, Doncaster will get relegated, Wimbledon might survive, but we're going to finish comfortably in the top half. Well, that's a fantastic season. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, Ewan. I think that is the way we've got to see it. I don't see it bottling it if we finished 8th this season. If I don't know, it's one of those things. But if we'd have had a conversation and we were told that we were going to be in 6th place this time at the beginning of the season, we'd have all been, wow, that is unreal. I get the sentiment again, and I get the way that we were playing football. But if we were told that we were going to be in 6th place right now, we'd have all absolutely jumped to that. I think that comes with that. There is the realism as well, and let's be realistic and understand we can't cope with these teams that are spending lots of money. However, we still have a chance yet, chaps. Yeah. Still have a chance of doing this and getting in the playoffs and going up. That's what we have to remember as well.
Yeah, I think it's both, isn't it? Like, to your point of, like, look at the other teams who came up with us. They're all struggling. Like, but because of what we've already achieved, like what you worry about, like almost having it like look at who we're fighting against. Look at these like massive teams with massive budgets. Like you worry about almost having like an inferiority complex.
Yeah,
like,
you take too many steps back actually, and
Yeah.
you lose focus on what actually your goal should be, which for Alexander will be, well, we take it a game at a time. We don't look at the table. We just try to win every game, and they won't think about the players that are lining up against them or the backing of the clubs that we're playing. You've got to focus on the smaller picture, I think, if you're in that conversation. But luckily, we're not, and we have the privilege of sitting in these in our seats at these games, looking at what we see on the pitch, and we're able to see the bigger picture, because the players, not that they're not allowed to, but they're focused on something entirely different to what we're on.
Yeah, true, very true.
Yeah,
like before we just finished off on that, I'm going to disagree that I do think it is a bottle if we don't end up playoffs. Yeah.
really? Oh, I mean, you predicted us to finish playoffs.
Yeah.
No.
Take
Take my pre-season prediction out of the way, and I get the sentiment of we've only just come up. We'd have all bitten hands off to be one place above the relegation spots, come the end of the season and all that good stuff. But we've got to play the here and now. We're in a position. So, and like you said, we've got the same lads that started this at the start of the season, and we've got ourselves to a position. So we've got to take it from the position that we're in, and if we do drop out of it, it is a bottle. For me at this point, it would be a bottle. Would I be happy with the season as a whole? Looking back on it at the end, if we miss out, is it a successful season? Yeah, it is. We haven't been relegated, but from this point onwards, because of the position that we're in, is it a bottle job if we don't make playoffs? 100%.
Well, with that in mind, we've talked a lot about the structure of the club, and obviously recently we've announced a massive landmark partnership with M-Bank, American finance tech company, and it's a big step for the club, isn't it? This, and a lot of people on Twitter are, I think, rightfully looking at this saying, well, this screams American takeover in 4 or 5 years maybe, or that serious backing could come into the football club.
Well, yeah, I don't know much about it. I don't know about you guys. Like, it totally knocks out my whole Amazon theory that I had. It were a bit out there, but but it's good. It's good, right? It's good that we're getting some outside investment, and it's gonna increase our visibility across the pond in a market that is growing. The American market for British football is growing because of your Birminghams, your Tom Brady's and Wrexham and all that. So the EFL is this big growing entity, and if this is gonna expand our horizons, it can only be good things for the club, right?
Yeah, I think let's say, like, for argument's sake, 5 years' time, we get taken over by an American consortium, which might happen, might not, who knows. I think regardless of where we are, like, regardless of who it is, if we do want to compete, if we do want to go up to the championship, compete in the championship, we will need to get some sort of investment from somewhere. But I think what is really important within that is to keep people on board that are currently at the club now, or keep a certain amount of people who know how the club work, have the best intentions for the club itself, but also the fans. I think you need people who are, like, from Bradford, or not necessarily from Bradford, people who have been there and like, for example, our season tickets, like for what, 15 odd years now, nearly 20 years, the cheap ticket pricing's been front and center. You need people who are going to keep things like that going, and not just use the club as an ego trip, basically. So, while I'm fully on board with it, and with all of this stuff to get us more visibility, make us more of an attractive prospect, grow the brand, so to speak, I think it needs to be done with or alongside some people at least that are currently there now, just so we keep true to what like the club actually is, what it represents, and what it does for everyone.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, and it'll play well in the mind of a lot of people around the club, the fans especially. That was exactly when Rahic and Rupp took over. That was exactly what didn't happen. So when if a new takeover comes, don't get ahead of myself. When that takeover comes, we want it to go right, and the people at the club will do absolutely everything in their power to make sure we don't get a repeat of Rupp and Rahic coming in.
Yeah, or could like you've seen could be even worse. Like look at Sheffield Wednesday, look at what Reading went through, and then there's the sort of 10 a penny in the EFL stories like that.
There's so many horror stories, aren't there? Like of these investments gone wrong. So you do want it to go right, but I think Sparks at the wheel will be absolutely fine because he'll know exactly what needs to happen and what the steps are in order to make sure the club is secure for tens of years to come.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's one thing that he is very much, or he seems to be anyway, very much on top of, like keeping the sort of financial sales,
commercial side of things.
Commercially, Ryan Sparks has been an absolute phenomenal custodian of the club commercially, and since he's realised that the football inside's not his strongest forte, and he's brought Sharp in and everything, he's got it now, and yeah, he's done absolutely phenomenal. But that's all ifs, buts, and maybes. Obviously, I think we're going to find out more information through the club towards summer. I'm not sure whether it's an on-shirt sponsorship or whatever. But let's move ahead to Peterborough next week. As Ewan alluded to, that they're firing at the moment. How are we seeing that go? Don't all jump in.
I know. Yeah, we're all dreading to say. Well, no, I'd back us. Like I said earlier, I think we're really good at home. With even against Cardiff, we gave them a really good run for the money. It was an open, fair game. That was a really good game. We played to their standards, and we always tend to do that at home. So I think if Peterborough come to us straight, we'll obviously struggle, but I don't think they will. They'll come to play football, and I think we'll make a good game of it. I'd always back us at home to at least turn up, which I think has been the issue that we haven't done a lot away from home recently. I'd probably say a draw. They're quite high scoring, so that doesn't bode well for us because we definitely are not high scoring at the moment. So I'll go 2-2 draw.
I'd never want to take. I'd never accept. I think the league we're in and what we're fighting for, I would never go into a home game, especially knowing how good we are at home, saying that I'd take a point. Just because I think if we're taking a point at home, I mean, like what are we doing? Like, I appreciate that has no bearing on the actual outcome of the game.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Yeah. I think you're looking at the next 4 games, right? We've got Peterborough, Stockport, Wimbledon, and Rotherham. I think to keep the wolves from the door, we want to be taking at least 7 points from that. I think it's probably, given where our form at the moment, it's probably unreasonable to assume that we won't lose any of them. I probably would suggest that if we're going to lose one of them, it'd probably be against Stockport. But I think the last home game against Doncaster, we looked as close to back to where we were at the start of the season as we have done for a while. Obviously, still not quite there. I think if we can replicate that back at home again, I'd say 1-0, 2-0, 2-1 maybe.
I'm going to go. Do you know what, Stuff? I'm going to go with it. I'm going to say 2-0 City. I think we are a different beast at home. Even when you looked at the Cardiff game, I thought we played really well that day. We are very different at home. I'm going 2-0. I'm happy with that. 2-0. Positivity.
Oh, there's positivity, but I do think we will concede. We don't keep clean sheet. No chance. I'll go 3-1, and I'll go stick made up there as well, and we'll go with a Mullin hat trick.
That is ridiculous. I was going to say
there's going to be a Mullin hat trick. I reckon it's on the cards.
Okay,
but trust the process. Anyway, boys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Time has moved on very quickly for us. It's always a pleasure, always a privilege to spend a bit of time with you lads. Thanks, Will, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You're definitely welcome back anytime.
Oh, yeah.
But until next time, thanks from all of us. That's the 1911. Have a good day.